get ready. Join us as we take another trip to the attraction graveyard. In this installment, we take a look at 7 former Six Flags Magic Mountain attractions that no longer exist. There's always been a nostalgic air about Six Flags parks. It's about time we take a look at the history of this California coaster haven and detail some of its forgotten rides. Get ready. Number 7. Colossus. Colossus was the park's iconic wooden coaster. It operated in the park between the years 1978 and 2014. Colossus was designed to give the rumble and sway experience that was said to be missing from steel coasters. In a sense, this was the park's attempt at providing guests the option of a traditional roller coaster. It was also a dual track coaster, meaning that there were 2 tracks to choose from. Both coasters would run simultaneously, allowing for intense interactions as the tracks would intertwine. Both trains would leave the station together and then race to the finish line. When it opened, Colossus was the tallest and fastest wooden roller coaster in the world. It sat at a height of 38 meters or 125 feet and reached an impressive speed of 100 kilometers an hour or 62 miles per hour. After more than 36 years in operation, Six Flags announced that Colossus would permanently close on August 16, 2014. However, less than 2 weeks after its closure, Six Flags announced that they already had plans for this ride. Colossus would re-emerge for the 2015 season as a hybrid coaster called Twisted Colossus, manufactured by Rocky Mountain Construction. This reimagining retained much of the original wooden structure, but the track itself was upgraded to steel. This allows for some of the rustic sensations of a wooden coaster, but the smooth layout of a steel coaster. Although Colossus is no longer with us, it has been immortalised as a source material for one of the best coasters in the world. Number 6. Déjà Vu. Déjà Vu was an iconic structure found in the Psyclone Bay area of the park from 2001 to 2011. The coaster was the first of Vecoma's giant inverted boomerangs. Riders would sit in the cars with the track above them so that they are suspended above the ground. The trains would then reverse out of the station up a vertical lift hill. After being held facing directly down towards the ground, the trains would then release, sending the cars speeding through the station. It would then enter a cobra roll, followed by a vertical loop before reaching another vertical portion of the track. The cars would then reach the top of the second vertical tower. Again, the cars would release, sending them traversing backwards through the track layout. This is the reason the coaster was given its apt name. Déjà Vu sat at a towering 59 meters or 194 feet, reaching top speeds of 105.6 kilometers an hour or 65.6 miles per hour. This was one of the most popular and iconic Six Flags Magic Mountain attractions at the time. I'm sure there are many fans of Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 that wish to get to experience it in real life. Luckily for them, the ride still exists today, although it's not actually found in Six Flags Magic Mountain. In October 2011, the ride was officially closed, but it was later relocated to Six Flags New England under the new name of Goliath. It reopened to the public on May 25, 2012, where it still stands and operates to this day. Number 5. Green Lantern First Flight. Green Lantern First Flight was the park's Zack spin coaster manufactured by Intamin. The ride operated in the park between 2011 and 2017, but stayed in the park until 2019. It was the park's second fourth dimension coaster after X2 originally opened in 2002. Riders would sit in the car either side of the track. The cars would actually spin independently, sending riders tumbling as they traverse along the track. The layout was a zigzag pattern along 251 meters or 825 foot of track. As the cars travelled back and forth along the design, it would cause the cars to topple over somewhat uncontrollably. During the short ride, riders would also experience a top speed of 60 kilometers an hour or 37 miles per hour. Green Lantern First Flight was notorious for being one of the most uncomfortable rides of all the Six Flags Magic Mountain attractions. During its lifespan at the park, it received several modifications. This was based on the fact that on certain occasions, trains would actually get stuck in an upside down position. To counteract this, the spinning of the vehicles was hampered. This led to unnatural movements, causing many riders painful experiences while riding. Based on its poor operations and bad reviews, Six Flags later stopped operating the ride in July 2017. The ride was left untouched before it was announced in 2019 that the ride would be relocated. La Ronde in Canada, a Six Flags operated park, now houses Green Lantern. However, the ride will now be called Viper and is scheduled to open later in 2021. Number 4. Log Jammer. Log Jammer was a historical and traditional log flume ride that originally opened in the park in 1971. It remained operational all the way up until 2011, marking a 40-year history. 1971 as a year obviously holds a special place in the history of Six Flags Magic Mountain, as this was its first opening year. So not only did we lose a log flume with this closure, but also a classic piece of Six Flags history. Although with that said, Log Jammer was by no means a cutting edge attraction by the time of its closure. This, tied in with the fact that the park already had a log flume with Jetstream, meant that change was inevitable. The ride's last operating day came on October 31st, 2011. The land was eventually cleared in 2013 to make way for full throttle. We are of the opinion that this is most likely a fair trade. However, there still is a slight sadness to see such a vintage attraction come to an end, particularly as this was an early example of an Arrow-developed log flume. Many guests at this park will remember it as a staple attraction, especially for regular visitors. Number 3. Psyclone. Out of all the Six Flags Magic Mountain attractions featured in this video, Psyclone has had one of the most interesting stories. This wooden coaster originally opened in the park in 1991 and operated until 2006. The design and layout was modelled after the Coney Island Psyclone, a historical landmark coaster based in New York. With a top height of 29 metres or 95 feet, and a top speed of 80 km an hour or 50 miles per hour, it was a respectable woodie. The ride was known for its dips and drops as well as its bank turns. However, in 1994, the Northbridge earthquake caused significant structural damage to the coaster. It was repaired, although the ride was never the same again. Many of the modifications meant that the ride had to be somewhat tamed. Trim brakes were installed to slow the coaster, meaning it crawled around many of its turns. The coaster also aged poorly and became extremely rough over time. The ride was known to stall mid-ride, unable to complete a full circuit. Because of this, a policy was put into place that the coaster could only run if there were 17 riders on board, which allowed for extra momentum. Unfortunately, based on the ride's painful reputation, this meant that the coaster stood idle for several points of the day. By 2006, it was widely considered as one of the worst wooden roller coasters in the world. It was eventually demolished in 2007, with Apocalypse opening in 2009 in its place. Number 2. Flashback. Flashback was supposed to be the next big thing for Intamin. Originally, this coaster opened in Six Flags Great America in 1985 under the name Z-Force. The layout featured several rolling track dives with trains turning into the drops. After 3 years, the ride was relocated to Six Flags Over Georgia. Lasting only another handful of years, it did not win Guest Hero over either. It was eventually listed in the Six Flags Magic Mountain Attractions roster for the 1992 season. It operated for 11 years up until 2003. It was left standing for a subsequent 4 years, remaining idle until 2007. There are a couple of reasons for this. Firstly, the ride was not good and it was super painful. Many guests reported bashing their head off the restraints during every hairpin dive. Secondly, because of the coaster's proximity to Hurricane Harbour, the noisy ride disrupted guests enjoying a relaxing water park experience. It was also noted that the ride was so noisy that it posed issues for lifeguards who might not hear guests calling for help. This meant that Flashback would not be allowed to operate during peak seasons, starting from 2006. Overall, what was supposed to be Intamin's next mass-produced model turned into a huge disaster. The land was cleared in 2007 and the water park was extended into the vacant space. Number 1. Freefall. Freefall was the park's signature drop tower. It was a feature of the Magic Mountain roster between the years 1982 to 2008. However, the ride was mostly out of operation in its latter years. Freefall was the first of its kind when it initially opened. This drop tower attraction was developed by Givanola, but marketed by Intamin. Freefall is therefore considered the pioneering first-generation drop tower. The base of the drop was actually tapered, reducing the angle the more it reached the ground. This meant that although the tower stood at 30.5 metres or 100 feet, the drop was actually only 26.5 metres or 87 foot. The verticality of the drop was even shorter at about 10.7 metres or 35 foot. Despite this, it was groundbreaking for its day. The ride type proved popular and many duplicates cropped up around various parks in the 80s and 90s. The ride used to be situated right in the middle of the Riddler's Revenge. This offered some nice interaction with the two rides. Although by more modern standards, it just wasn't reaching the heights of other similar attractions, so to speak. The ride remained essentially abandoned for a couple of years before it was eventually removed. The park would eventually get a much bigger drop tower with Lex Luthor Drop of Doom. Why not check out another video in our attraction graveyard series, such as Universal Studios Hollywood, which will be on screen now. We hope you enjoyed this recap of some of the former Six Flags Magic Mountain attractions. Now you're ready. Which one of these did you ride growing up? Let us know in the comments below. And if you haven't already, please give this video a like and press the subscribe button. We put out videos every week.